Okay, everyone, how are you doing? This is Kirk Bankstead with the Minocqua Brewing Company. I call it the Times because we're on Substack. I own the Minocqua Brewing Company. I'm with Ben Cominos, who is with what's the WHBY?
Where
how do I
hot
remember that
boys
again?
yodel. Where hot boys yodel.
Where
Very,
hot
very
boys
easy
yodel.
acronym to remember.
Ben wrote an article today. He writes every Tuesday. He's one of our, I think, 8 writers we have now on our Substack page. And we do this live, but then we give this to our subscribers, packaged up, our paid subscribers, because we got to figure out how to pay Ben and Patty and John and everybody who does this stuff for us. So today, Ben wrote an article. Ben is super progressive, but he's highly critical of establishment Democrats, which, thank God, we found him, because I thought I was shouting into the void for a long time and getting yelled at by Democrats in Wisconsin for not being on the right, not playing with the team when I was seeing things go wrong. But Ben, let's talk about your article today. Uh, it just yeah, introduce it. You had a lot of quotes for Cory Booker, who is an establishment Democrat that seemingly will filibuster something for 24 hours, but go and vote against all of our interests. Give us the rundown of what you wrote about today.
Yeah, it's a level of frustration that I am feeling right now because it's a joke. I've said it to you. I might have said it to you last week. It's the plight of the progressive. We are reprimanded for being right about stuff before we are supposed to be right about it. And then inevitably everybody else kind of catches up to where we had been for the last 10 years. And not too long ago, forget about defund ICE, abolish ICE was a pretty popular progressive moment here. And we're going to be talking about this on and off, and I don't want to ruin our entire conversation. But fundamentally, the Democratic strategy, what centrists, what liberals try to do is placate the American right. They say, how can we appear more centrist in an effort to win over Republican voters? And you'll see Cory Booker say, oh, ICE is a necessary part of this, and we should continue to increase their funding, but just make sure that they're nicer about it as they kind of move
Wait,
forward.
Ben, let
As
me
it,
read the quote.
yeah,
Exactly the quote, because I think
yeah.
that
It's
everyone
not a
needs.
quote, that's a pretend nickname that I gave, but go on. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but go on.
We 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 should probably get to the lead of this story, which is
Yeah.
Cory Booker's quote. And Cory Booker said, "Today, I'm taking action to bring accountability to federal law enforcement like ICE. New legislation I'm announcing will require ICE to adopt rigorous training and hiring standards, and for their agents to wear body cameras. There are best practices used by law enforcement agencies across our country. We need to bring transparency and accountability to ICE in order to make Americans safer. ICE is currently disappearing people and shooting people in the face in Minneapolis and Chicago, right around us in Wisconsin. And for a Democrat to be introducing legislation to just have better standards for ICE is completely missing the moment of what's happening. We have a police state that's been funded to the tune of $75 billion, that is 5 times the size of the FBI, that's going to start policing us as well as immigrants very soon.
A
This was what
hundred
your article was about,
A
Ben.
100%. And what it reminds me of, Kirk, my dad is 69 years old, and he will tell you stories that drunk driving was not always illegal. There was a time in his youth when if you hit somebody on the road and killed them while you were drunk, everyone else would be like, well, what's he supposed to do? He was drunk. And what Cory Booker is essentially establishing is we've got a guy, Jonathan Ross, who decided to cross in front of a car to block it, which ultimately led to the reaction that we ended up seeing. This is not the first time that that has happened. ICE has done this plenty of times. It's the first time that it has ended up in this murder. And what Cory Booker has decided is that it's not their innate perspective of life. It's not the fact that most of these people aren't qualified to tie shoes for a living. It's not any of the things that we know to be true as we continue following this story. It's that he hasn't received the right amount of training, as if that's going to make it any better. This is innate, and we are watching an administration defend this guy regardless if he had the training or not. He's in front of that car. And if he had been trained to not get in front of that car, you know what Noam would be saying? Oh, well, in the heat of the moment, you might not make the right decisions and you need to be able to ba ba ba. And he thought his life was in danger. The training doesn't mean anything anymore. I would be fine killing the entire program. Just take the whole thing down. And the idea, I said it in the article, find me a Republican that's saying, I'm going to increase funding for welfare programs. I want to increase the funding, but I want to make it more difficult for people to be able to acquire it. But we're going to more than double the funds that are there. And we're going to make sure that the right things happen in order to seem more centrist, in order to try and placate the libs a little bit. Show me that guy, because it's always liberals saying, you know what, we probably should put Bernie Sanders on the shelf and march Liz Cheney out there so they know we mean business. How many Republican votes is Cory Booker going to pick up for this legislation? Zero. How many leftward votes is he going to lose for this situation? A bunch. And like,
Totally.
there comes a time when you just have to, no one's going to vote for diet ice when someone's like, no, we're going to do $150 billion for ICE and take away all the training. Like that, no one's going to vote for that. So let's grow up and find people that mean business here.
So the point of ICE, which it's become abundantly clear, and for any politician in U.S. politician or Wisconsin politician who doesn't get this, the point of ICE is to put them in blue cities and and create a police state so that if judges start reining in Trump's policies, it won't matter anymore because they'll have enough boots on the ground to stop all protests and to ignore what the judges are saying. Do you agree? Do you agree with me here? I mean, this is what I want every politician to be saying right now because that's the end game. Or the end game is to suspend elections in 2026 to hold on to power through military force, which is ICE. Is this? Do you agree with me here?
That could be that could be coming from Trump. I agree with you that that could be coming from Trump. Like we talked about last week, though, to me, these guys are embarrassed. Like I would say they're ashamed to tell their kids what they do, but that would require having seen a woman naked before to have a child. So I doubt that any of these kids have kids that they need to hide their profession from. Um, well, they are embarrassed. In Minnesota, they are actively looking for volunteers right now because they cannot get enough people to go down there. And as I mentioned, Minnesota, it's a big market. It's a top 15 market for media. It's spread out. It's easy to intimidate. It's not a major city. And again, if these guys want us to believe this is actually in the name of getting the murderers and killers out of the country, Minnesota, do you know where it ranks in terms of immigrant population? 23rd. There are 22 other states that deserve more attention. And I am not advocating to see 22 more states become police states, but I am saying it has been a tactical decision to pick Minnesota. They might try and intimidate people away, try and steal elections, but independents aren't going for it. Liberals aren't going for it, and an unfortunate amount of Republicans are going for it. But close to 1 in 7 say already, no, we've jumped the shark. This has gone too far, and that's as of right now. Give it 4 more months of this horse crap and see how many people are on board
Yeah.
with that sentiment.
All right. So, all obviously, I want to remind our listeners that Ben and I are progressive. We want America to succeed. We are not against the Democratic Party. I think criticism is warranted of the establishment Democrats, but we want to save America. And you know, and I want. There's a couple other notes here that I have of. We want you who is listening right now to call your representative if they're not getting it. And we want you to put pressure on them so that they get it and they know that America is in danger and that they start talking that talk. I have a couple other data points here that I looked up after Ben wrote his piece that I wanted to bring to the table. So last week there was a vote in the House for HR 7006 that allocated $3.3 billion to Israel to continue funding, their military, which I think it's pretty clear is a is a genocide against Palestine, and it's potentially what lost us the election, the presidential election, because we lost so many progressives. But that doesn't even matter. I mean, Israel has like gone against their ceasefire hundreds of times. I mean, they're bad actors at this point, and we just funded them. We just funded abortion restrictions across the country that was included in this bill because you know what they do. You try to put in as much as you can into a bill and then force it to be passed because you don't get money that allocates good things. Unless everything is passed. So there's a couple hundred people in the House of Representatives. 153 Democrats voted to continue funding Israel and to pass sweeping abortion restrictions throughout the country. In a time when in a time when we see a police state forming and we see our federal government attacking us, why are any Democrats voting for anything? We should be stopping the government all altogether until something changes.
Yeah, Kirk, I like this is going to sound so. I'll just be real with you here. I buy into the concept of our politics being one giant example of kabuki theater. I think there's always going to be one more Democrat than is necessary to push forward bad legislation, and one more Republican than is necessary to make sure that good legislation is blocked. Medicare for all is polling at over 60%. Doesn't matter what state you're talking about. You can't get any kind of groundswell underneath the idea. I've told you this in our personal lives. You and I are both wired very similarly in terms of how politicians work. The difference between you and I is the slight age gap between us. And when you're talking to people under 40, they're looking at a party that sees $3.3 billion going to Israel. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to see the money going over there, but $3.3 billion ain't the reason why we're in the position we're in. I don't like that we are aligning ourselves with a genocidal regime and that we are providing the weapons, backing, funding, and moral support for what's taking place over there. I actually have on my Facebook page right now Minnesota's kicker wore I Stand with Israel shoes, and a linebacker for Houston on Sunday wore Stop the Genocide tape, and only one of those two players was fined, and it's the exact one you think that was fined. We have a problem talking about that issue here. But fundamentally, it's why, and I'm assuming this is what you're leaning into, it's why the Democratic Party tried to stop Mamdani's election, because progressives are ready for action. And Biden did some good things. No junk fees, making it so that airlines had to refund you if they screwed up your vacation. There was some good nibble around the edges pieces of legislation here, but fundamentally, it's been 45 years of inaction that a lot of people were woken up by Trump. If there's one thing that orange SOB did that was positive, is I'm off the benches now. I was laying back thinking everything was fine and I'm ready to see change, but we want to actually see progressive movement. You can be a centrist. Nobody in the progressive side of things is anti any identity group. They're not sexist. They're not homophobic. None of that things. There's so much effort to paint progressives in a certain light. And I think we're reaching ahead here where Donald Trump is disgusting. But if you look at the polling right now, a lot of people have not bought into what Democrats are because it looks like they're preparing to run on isn't Trump scary again. And I hope that's not the case because that's going to be a long year.
So Ben, the one thing about your essay, you dissed Cory Booker a lot. And by the way, I have a story about Cory Booker from 4 years ago. So
Yeah,
my super PACs raised we raised about $2 million right now. So when you raise that much money and spend it in progressive politics, you're invited to this thing called a donor table for a bunch of rich progressives. So I was invited to go there, and they had Cory Booker as a speaker at this thing. And this is right around the time where Biden was trying to pass all this legislation, but Manchin, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema were the two
sure.
Democratic senators who voted against everything. So even though we had a majority, we had the same thing that Trump has now back 4 years ago, and we couldn't pass a darn thing because these two senators were voting against it. So I asked him, like, we just worked our tails off to vote Biden into office and save America. We progressive, we Wisconsinites, because we're a swing state. You have two senators. Why can't you get those senators to do something or to vote to actually do what we want, what we fought so hard to achieve? And he's like, well, you know what? You in Wisconsin just need to convince more Democrats to vote. That's what he said. He didn't take any of the blame. I'm like, you should chain Manchin and Sinema to walls and not feed them until they vote with your caucus,
Right.
to fix these things. And he
Look what
said, you
Trump's
need to
doing to
work a little
Massey.
harder,
Look what
to vote.
Trump's doing to Massey right now about War Powers Acts. Thomas Massey, a libertarian Republican, is saying, I'm not voting for this BS. And Trump is relentless. He's trying to ruin his career. He is advocating for anybody to run against him. And like, I actually agree with what Massey's saying a lot of the times, but where was that? And Kirk, I'll even take you a step further back. We should have a public option associated with Obamacare. That was included in the original bill. For anyone that was too broke to go through private insurance, we were going to have a government run, sell for price, generic medicine. And you know who killed it? Joe Lieberman, who was a Democrat, who ended up becoming an independent, who retired the next term and ended up going into the lobbying group. What did Manchin and Sinema do? Became
Lobbyist,
independent and retired and became lobbying groups. There's always one more Democrat than is necessary
Kabuki
to
theater.
kill positive legislation.
Okay, so let me move to the positive stuff. So I can't believe that some of the Democrats aren't doing everything they can to save America right now. But in your essay, you mentioned that in a very short amount of time, Mamdani with Democratic Governor Hochul or Hochul, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, have done some amazing things. Talk about that part of your essay, Ben.
Yeah, I wrote the story yesterday. So as of the writing, it had been 19 days as mayor, 18 if you don't count the first day, because that's primarily ceremonial, right? But he has 19 days as mayor, and this guy, he people were ready to throw their weight behind Andrew Cuomo, who had a dozen credible sexual assault accusations against him, but we didn't want to throw our weight behind Mamdani because he might accidentally make life more affordable. And in the 18 to 19 days that he has
No,
had to
because
do
he's
things.
Muslim, right? Because he's
Yeah,
Muslim, and
yeah, and he
and
spoke
you
out
thought
against
that
Israel.
because he was, of this religion, he might welcome terrorism into our country, or that's
It's
what they painted him as.
disgusting. If Republicans talked the way about a more centrist Muslim candidate, it would have been wall to wall coverage. But this was a pretty founded worry that a lot of people had that we don't really know. But in 18 days, he has started a universal pre-K and 3K. I'm not familiar with what 3K is. I guess that's an intermediary step for anybody in the 5 boroughs that can't afford it. That's $36,000 a year that people are going to be saving. I wonder how MAGA supporters feel about that. I have listeners in New York City who told me that finding access to a public restroom has been a problem since before 1980. And in 19 days, Mamdani cut through the red tape to allow for public restrooms to be built all over the place, and they're going to see them start popping up everywhere. And coming from a city where there is a pretty large homeless population, I'm from Pittsburgh. You could be in downtown Pittsburgh enjoying a drink, and you'll see somebody defecating in the middle of the road because no one wants to let them use their bathroom for obvious reasons, and there aren't any public ones. And now you're like, what do you do? Do you arrest this guy? Do you create some kind of camp? Nobody wants to do that. He said, yeah, let's just make bathrooms easier to build. And now they're doing it. He eliminates the red tape to start small businesses, and not like how liberals do it. Not if you were born with an Inuit father and a black mother on a Tuesday, and you want to start a business specifically in shoe repair, you can get a 10% reduction on your ability. No, if you want to start a small business in one of the 5 boroughs, we're getting rid of the red tape to allow you to do that. You know who wants to start businesses? Everybody, Republican, Democrat, Independent. No one's going to care about this type of stuff. So you got the guy keeping homeless people from using the street as their restroom, saving people about 30 grand on average per year for a fairly cheap service where the people working there ain't making money and the people trying to put their kids there can't afford to do it. You got small businesses starting up in a meaningful way. And he has a video out this morning talking about getting heating stations to more places to make sure the elderly can make it through this right now. I'm telling you, there are politicians, liberal, conservative, and all around the market right now, watching what this guy is doing in less than 3 weeks, being like, oh my God, they're going to realize how much we have been fleecing them for the last 40 years. And it's their biggest nightmare. It's their biggest nightmare right now.
The point you made there, you just kind of led up to it, but the big point you made was that if you are not bought and sold by special interests, it's amazing what you can do because you can just listen to the needs of the people and you can just pass things that are needed. And the fact that he won and he's not bought and sold we're seeing tons of movement right now, which is what you're saying is probably a scaring it's definitely scaring MAGA, but
Yeah.
it's scaring establishment Democrats as well, because some of them have been bought and sold by special interests, and they call up big pharma, or they call up their construction buddies, or they call up private schools like the religious schools or the Catholic Church and say, should I do this policy that gives free schools to the kids? Should I do this policy that builds bathrooms? Should I do this policy, that makes it easier for small businesses as opposed to big corporations have this stuff? They're going to call. They're going to make that call, and they're going to say, no, don't do it. And they're going to be, okay, we won't do it. We'll make it harder. We'll just pretend that we care about people.
Yeah,
So
you're absolutely right with your assessment there, and I think that's where a lot of my articles are very angry, and the large percentage behind that is I'm actually devastated by what Trump is doing. And you know what would have killed MAGA, the movement in its crib? Bernie Sanders in 2016. Actual populist movement to benefit people. You're going to watch New York. It's a liberal bastion, but they cannot. You're already watching the New York Times start to send articles out there that say, Mom Donnie doesn't have any black deputies in his group. That's going to be a problem down the line. They're already leaning into the identitarian politics. You should have a diverse cabinet, great, but you know what the black people of New York are thrilled about? Saving money on childcare. They don't care what the person is who is getting them to that position. They
yeah,
care about the actual outcome of what took place. There's a very famous video, and I apologize to our Chicago viewers right now. There's a very famous video of Barack Obama in Flint, Michigan, a predominantly black town, pretending to drink the water in front of them, giving his seal of approval. No, don't hold the companies responsible. This water's totally drinkable. And if liberals can't realize that that attitude is why we've been dealing with this since 2016, we're going to continue dealing with it going forward. That is what people are sick and tired of, is that kind of attitude. And what Mamdani and the progressive movement in general represents is maybe a little more uncouth. Maybe we cuss a little more. Maybe we're a little bit angrier. We don't all have PhDs, but we understand what the average person is looking for and why we feel slighted right now.
yeah,
And I know it drives you nuts, but I feel like there is an active push within the Democratic Party to make sure that people like that never see the light of day in any kind of major way. I'm full throat on AOC right now until I come across a better candidate that's out there, and they're already trying to
yeah,
pigeonhole her as too extremist. You know what's
yeah.
too extremist? Mass Gestapo murdering people in the middle of the street. So this won an election. I have a feeling, hey, we could probably do healthcare less expensive, could probably win an election.
Yeah. So, I have two thoughts about that. So I was at a progressive thing on Saturday where you had all these kind of, I hate to call them influencers. They're activists who are active on social media.
Yeah.
But they've got like millions of followers. There's a woman named Rachel Cohen who was one of the few lawyers who left her top 10 law firm that bent the knee to Trump, and she's actively marching. Most of these folks are the ones, they're in Chicago, and they're protesting at Broadview right now. They're protesting ICE at the ICE facility, and so they actively were they're so cynical about Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries because they've been pepper sprayed. They've
Yeah.
been hit. They've been detained. That guy that Roddy the Road Steamer was there. This is the guy that wears the giraffe costume.
Yeah, I
He's been
saw.
beat up by ICE a ton of times. He's a little uncouth, let's be honest, but like
Yeah.
he has been detained by ICE and beaten the crap out of a bunch of times. And so my, these people are seeing what's happening and seeing the violence and are being hurt, uh, you know, and they know the drill. And so my thought is, if you're just going to get railroaded in DC as a minority party, even in the House or in the Senate, you're just going to get railroaded. Like, why don't you go to the front where all this is happening? Go to Minneapolis, go to Chicago, like hold hands with the faith leaders, hold hands with the people who are getting, hit by pepper spray bullets. Understand what's happening. And then you might stop using rhetoric like maybe we should just give ICE, better video cameras so they get better training.
And it's one of the first articles that I wrote for you, Kirk. Nothing in Project 2025 even has a 40% approval rating, and yet it seems like every single day they're able to get a new part of that finished. Even when Obama was in office, Mitch McConnell was able to find ways to creatively block stuff left, right, and center. How is it that with slim majorities in both Trump 1 as well as Trump 2, they were able to pass massive tax cuts for billionaires with relative ease? But then the
Yeah.
Democrats get their shots and they're just like, hey, don't you guys want some new roads and bridges? Shut up about the billionaires for a second. Like, it stands out to me. It's kind of like people making this push to impeach Kristi Noem. Does Kristi Noem suck? Yes. Does she deserve that job? No. If Kristi Noem does get impeached, is the new person going to do the job better, worse, or the same than Kristi Noem? Probably the same, right? God willing, if not worse. It's kind of the same idea. Schumer, Jeffries, and a handful of others that are in Congress right now, they absolutely have lost the plot and are trying to placate us in ways because it is easy. I, as short as 3 months ago, was like, if they're going to march Gavin Newsom out there, Mr. I refuse to do a billionaire tax cut Newsom, or excuse me, to tax billionaires Newsom, I'm going to push for third party. Now, the events of the last couple months have kind of been like, am I actually going to do this duopoly thing again? But like, we're hitting a point where I know what I'm looking at and the excuses that the Democratic Party are giving you. If you compare it to WWE, Republicans are the bad guys. They relish that. A lot of their followers, a lot of the people that vote for them relish being the heel in terms of wrestling. Democrats are the babyface. They are the ones saying, we want to make childcare affordable. We want to make healthcare affordable, but those darn Republicans. And then when you give them an ounce of ability, an ounce of a chance to do something with it, they always give you a reason, whether it's the filibuster or packing the courts or mansion and cinema.
Yeah.
Jeffries and Schumer are a problem, but I don't believe replacing them with Richie Torres and, fill in the blank here, Gillibrand or someone is going to make the Democratic Party speak to a large demographic of people. I had a conservative. Our morning show guy's been out with some health issues. He's saying the percentage of 35-year-olds still living in their parents' basement is disgusting, and it's because no one wants to work anymore. And I said, no, it's not because of that. But you know what? That's the audience that isn't showing up for Democrats either because they've watched themselves get sucked into that trap. I'm 3 years older than that. I'm 38. If I would have been in radio from the time I left college, I'm probably doing the show from my dad's house right now based on what the cost of living is. And the first Democrat embracing that reality in a meaningful way. Trump sucks. That should be the only time you mention it. Let's talk about addressing these issues now. All he's doing is getting those guys richer. What are you guys going to do?
All right, we've only got a couple minutes left. I want to turn us back to kind of an action item. What can you get from this? We're just not bashing Democrats, right? We want our Democratic politicians who are generally lagging in ideas, and they only
Yeah,
accept ideas if we scream and yell
he's nicer than I am about it.
and potentially if they lose their careers because they get voted out, then they might listen. So what do we want them to listen for? I mean, we have something that nobody's talking about right now, and it's the end of January is when the continuing resolution to fund
Yeah,
the federal government elapses. The Democrats passed it, after right before the holidays because people weren't getting their SNAP benefits. It's really bad before the holidays to go hungry, but they I thought that was a weak move. We had them on the ropes. They passed it, but now it's up again. And now ICE just shot somebody in the face. We have videos every day. There's a list of people who have died at the hands of ICE, not
yeah.
just Renee Good. But there's just so much evidence that American citizens are just experiencing extreme trauma and violence at the hands of ICE. We have the opportunity to make sure that doesn't happen by not funding them. So the action item here is that you have to start calling everybody listening right now. Please start calling your Democratic congressmen and U.S. senators and ask and say, how are you going to vote? What are going to be the conditions that you place on this continuing resolution in order to fund the government? Ben?
Yeah, and I'd even say because Democrats took a little bit of heat after bailing on that last shutdown, and now, lo and behold, 19 Republicans jump over the fence to go and vote, at least in the House. We'll see what happens in the Senate, of course, to keep Obamacare up and running. So I'd argue a lot of the narrative, even though it looked like a Democrat capitulation at the time, did seem to sink in with a lot of voters to the point where people didn't have any choice but to jump on board. What I'm hopeful for is a very similar kind of thing here. I don't know. A month and a half after a shutdown like that, I'm literally going to be out of the country when this happens. I'm going to be one of those people wondering, is FAA employed right now? Are they getting their money? Are they in the right mindset? So I'm going to be living exactly what everybody went through. Are they going to have the stones to push through with that? I think they should. I think this is a worthy cause to take upon themselves because it also shows that after 4 years of increasing ICE funding with Biden, 4 years of increasing it with Obama, that you finally are catching on to the fact that we don't want these people here. We want immigration reform. We want to know the people coming in this country are good, decent people that want to make a living. In my world, I realize I'm a little fringe on this. I would say everyone who's here is legal, and we're going to lock down the borders going forward. No more ICE stuff, no more policing your own people kind of garbage. And I feel that should be the moderate Democrat position, let alone the leftist Democrat. The real lefty Ben says, "What's a border, guys? It's a fake line. Let's just live life." I understand that's not the popular opinion, and I wouldn't come down on someone for not sharing that view with me.
Yeah.
But I feel like what I proposed is a fairly common sense solution, and let these guys know it ain't the cameras. These are bad people. These are unqualified people. Daily Mail says 18% of these people minimally cannot functionally read or write. And these are the people making these kind of decisions for us here. This can't be the way that we're operating. And I don't want to hear that Democrats are intending to continue these people in a friendlier garb. I don't buy that. We got to quell this before it goes too far.
If we stop them now, then they can't get big enough to become a police force that can run roughshod over our elections 2026. We don't have that much time left to stop ICE, and I think we need to stop them now.
You know, Kirk, I'm old enough to remember when leftists and liberals knew that the FBI and CIA were designed to squash leftist movements, monitor the Black Panthers, ruin civil rights movements. But all of a sudden now, oh no, these guys are the good guys. We just aren't trading them the right way. Like, I don't know who's trying to pull a fast one on us here, but I know what I'm looking
I
at.
didn't
I know
believe
what
that
I'm looking
stuff
at.
until the last 10 years. I was on the side of law enforcement. I was on the side of government. I was like, I believe no longer,
Yeah.
especially after we getting put in jail up in
Yeah.
Oneida County for simply
Yeah.
giving a speech. I am no longer on the side of law enforcement. So,
Right.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. I
Yeah.
appreciate you
Thank
as
you.
always. Have a great time in Thailand. I'm going to miss you for the next couple of podcasts, but I'm sure everybody appreciates all the writing you're doing for us and keeping us straight.
I appreciate that very much, man. It's always a good time. I'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye now.